All right, so picture this. It's what, 9:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. The coffee is still way too hot to drink, and you've got the whole DevOps team, huddled around a monitor.
Classic scene.
Exactly. And they are not looking at cat memes. They are absolutely locked in, obsessing over their internal infrastructure. They're tweaking Kubernetes, staring at Grafana, making sure everything is just humming along perfectly.
Right. It's that fortress mentality.
Mm.
We spend so much energy fortifying the castle we built ourselves. We're worried about our code, our clusters, our servers. That internal environment, we treat it like it's the only thing that matters.
And it feels safe, right? It feels like you're in control. I mean, you wrote the YAML, you know where all the bodies are buried. But today we're going to kind of ruin that sense of safety. We are digging into a piece of research published just a few days ago, January 21st, 2026, by an author named Inboren.
And the title alone is something else.
It is. It's basically a horror story in one sentence. Your biggest outage risk isn't Kubernetes, it's your DevOps sauce.
It's a striking title. It really is. It takes that core assumption of modern DevOps, that if you control your code and runtime, you control your destiny, and it just flips it on its head.
Because the twist here, the real threat, it isn't the code you wrote or the clusters you manage so carefully.
No.
It's the tools you depend on to build and ship everything. It's your SaaS stack. We're talking GitHub, Jira, Azure DevOps. The things you just assume will always be there.
And that assumption is a massive, massive blind spot. So the mission for our deep dive today is to really explore why that reliance is so precarious. We need to look at the shared responsibility model with some fresh eyes, and then, more importantly, figure out how to build some actual resilience.
Because the whole point of this article isn't if these tools go dark.
It's when.
Let's start with why we even have this blind spot. I think for most of us, it's a feeling of, well, I pay a giant tech company a lot of money, so they handle the scary stuff. It's like a peace of mind fee.
That's the psychological trap of the shared responsibility model. In the cloud infrastructure world, think AWS or Google Cloud, the model is pretty clear. The vendor manages the physical stuff, the concrete, the power, the cooling.
Right.
And you, the customer, you manage the data and the apps you run on top of it.
Okay, so I lock my digital front door. They guard the digital neighborhood. That makes sense for like an EC2 instance.
Theoretically, yes. But here's where it gets messy. When we go from infrastructure as a service to SaaS software as a service, that line moves a lot.
How so?
In a DevOps SaaS world, the vendor controls what the article calls the entire operational envelope.
Operational envelope. Okay, that sounds official. What does that actually mean for the engineer trying to ship a hotfix?
It means they hold all the cards.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. They decide the maintenance windows. They decide when to migrate regions. They decide the patching schedule. If you're running your own Kubernetes cluster and a node gets weird, what do?
You troubleshoot it, you SSH in, check the logs, reroute traffic, you have levers to pull.
Exactly. You have levers. But what if GitHub Actions goes down?
You're helpless.
You are absolutely helpless. You have zero visibility into the root cause. You can't initiate a failover because you don't own the server. You're basically standing outside a lock shop in the rain, just waiting for the owner to show up.
That feeling is so specific and so painful. You're just sitting there, refreshing status.github.com, hoping for green, but it's just red, red, red.
Yeah.
And the message is always something vague, like, we're investigating increased error rates.
And investigating can mean anything from someone tripped over a cable to the data center is on fire. You just don't know. And the data here really backs us up. The article points out that 2024 was a brutal year for this stuff.
Yeah, I saw those stats. It wasn't just a few glitches.
Not at all. Popular DevOps SaaS platforms had hundreds of incidents. It totaled thousands of hours of downtime in 2024 alone. GitHub specifically had multiple outages that lasted anywhere from 2 to 4 hours.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. In the grand scheme of things, 4 hours. It feels manageable, right? Can't the developers just, I don't know, go grab an early lunch or something? Is it really a crisis?
I'm glad you asked that because that is the exact thought process of most executives. Oh, the nerds can't type for a bit, no big deal. But in a high-velocity software pipeline, 4 hours is an eternity. It's not a pause. It's a complete blockage.
So walk me through the math. The article throws around some huge numbers. It claims for Fortune 1000 companies, a single hour of GitHub being down is between 1 and 5 million US dollars.
It sounds totally inflated, doesn't it? Like a scary number a vendor made up to sell you their backup solution.
It absolutely does. I mean, $5 million in 1 hour.
Okay, let's trace the money. First, you've got the simple salary burn. Let's say you have 2,000 engineers, and they're all blocked. They can't merge, they can't deploy. You're burning hundreds of thousands of dollars in payroll for people who are just staring at the wall.
Okay.
But that's the cheap part.
That's the cheap part. So what's the expensive part?
It's the opportunity cost. It's the cascade effect that freezes the entire business. I mean, let's get specific. The source lays it out. GitHub is down. Your CI/CD pipeline stops cold.
Right.
You can't merge code. You can't deploy fixes. Now imagine you're a major retailer, and it's Black Friday.
Oh.
And there's a bug in your checkout flow, dropping 10% of all transactions. You have the fix, 3 lines of code. But you can't ship it because the pipeline, the SaaS you don't control, is down.
So you're just bleeding cash.
You are losing actual revenue every single minute. That's not potential loss. That is cash that is not entering your bank account. The pipeline isn't just a dev tool. It's the only road to your customer.
And the article mentions things like SLA penalties, too.
Exactly. If you're a SaaS provider yourself and you can't patch a critical bug in time, now you owe your customers money. It's a compound financial fracture. So for a Fortune 1000, $5 million an hour might actually be conservative.
And even for the mid-market teams, the estimate was still, what, $300,000 to $500,000 an hour?
Correct. Which for a mid-sized company could wipe out an entire quarter's profit in one bad afternoon.
There's another layer to this freeze that was really unsettling. It's about the logs.
Yes. This is the scenario that should keep every DevOps lead awake at night.
Because it's one thing if you can't push new code. But what if your own app is crashing in production and you need to check the build logs to figure out what changed? But those logs are hosted on the same SaaS platform that's currently down.
You're flying blind in a hurricane.
Yeah.
If your production breaks and your deployment tool, which holds all the history, is also broken, how do you diagnose the problem? You can't. You're just guessing.
This brings us to the part of the article that I think is going to make a lot of listeners squirm. It's called the audit.
It's an uncomfortable checklist for sure.
Uncomfortable is putting it mildly. As I was reading this list, I felt that sinking feeling, like I forgot to study for a final exam. It just highlights this huge gap between what we think we have covered and what we actually do.
It's designed to be a reality check.
So let's go through it. And for everyone listening, I want you to honestly answer these in your head. First question. Who has independent backups of their Git repositories and commit history?
And just wait for that knee-jerk reaction.
Well, my reaction is GitHub does. That's what I pay them for.
And that is the trap.
Huh.
GitHub has disaster recovery for GitHub. If their data center burns down, they will restore it eventually to keep their business running. That is not your backup.
Okay, what's the difference? Distinguish that for me.
Okay, so if a disgruntled employee force pushes a blank commit and wipes out your main branch, GitHub's disaster recovery doesn't care. That's a feature, not a bug, from their perspective. Or, here's a more common one. What if your whole organization's account gets suspended by an automated bot because of a billing error?
Oh, wow. So the servers are fine, but I'm just locked out.
Exactly. You're a tenant who's been evicted. And if you don't have a copy of your own intellectual property stored somewhere else, you're starting from scratch. Independent means it's a copy you control on infrastructure you own that the vendor cannot touch.
So the answer for most teams is no.
For most teams, it is absolutely 100% no.
Okay, next question from the audit. Who has a documented plan for when GitLab or Azure DevOps goes offline? And the keywords there are documented plan.
Not just a vague idea in the tech lead's head, not, oh, we'll probably just wait it out. A specific step-by-step fire drill. In case of outage, break glass, do X, Y, and Z.
And here's one that catches people. Who stores CI/CD logs and artifacts outside the vendor's ecosystem?
This goes right back to that flying blind scenario.
Yeah.
If you build a Docker image, and it only lives in the GitHub Actions artifact storage,
And the vendor goes dark.
you can't get the binary. You literally cannot get the file you need to deploy. It is trapped inside their operational envelope. You're locked out of your own pantry.
And the final question, which I think is just darkly ironic. Who has an incident communication channel that doesn't rely on Slack or Teams?
It's so ironic.
Yeah.
We all use Slack to coordinate incident response. But if the outage is a huge cloud failure, like an entire AWS region going down, Slack might be down too. How do you tell your team to switch to plan B if your megaphone is broken?
So the verdict, according to this research, is that almost everyone is failing this audit. We're running around naked and we don't even know it.
We are optimists by nature. We just assume the tools will be there because, they usually are. But real resilience requires a healthy dose of pessimism.
Okay, so let's pivot. We've scared everyone enough. What do? We can't just delete our GitHub accounts and go back to passing around USB drives. The article even says we can't avoid these dependencies.
No, and we shouldn't try to. These SaaS tools are incredibly powerful. They give us velocity. The goal isn't to abandon them. It's to design for resilience around them, accept the dependency, and then build redundancy.
All right, let's get into the how-to. The source outlines 3 strategies. The first one seems like the most obvious. Git repository backups.
This is the absolute foundation. You have to mirror your primary Git repo. If you're on GitHub, you should be mirroring to GitLab, or maybe a self-hosted server running something lightweight like Gedit.
How often, though? Is this a once-a-month kind of thing?
Oh, no. Code moves way too fast for that. The recommendation is to automate these syncs to happen frequently, every hour at a minimum. Even better if it's triggered on every push.
Every hour? That sounds like a lot.
It's just text compression. It's
Yeah.
basically negligible. But the benefit is immediate. If GitHub goes down, your developers just change their remote origin, a simple git command, and they can push to the alternate server. They can keep working.
Okay, that seems like low-hanging fruit. But strategy 2 feels like a much heavier lift. CI/CD alternatives.
It is a heavier lift. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
So you're telling me that on top of my sleek, modern GitHub Actions pipeline, I need to maintain a dusty old Jenkins server in the corner just in case.
I know. Nobody wants to maintain a just-in-case Jenkins server. It feels like going backward. It feels like bloat. But the source is really clear here. You don't need a perfect replica of your fancy pipeline. You need a break glass pipeline.
Like a crude version.
Exactly. If the world is on fire, you don't need to run your linting checks. You don't need the pretty test coverage reports. You don't need the Slack notifications with the little party parrot emoji.
You just need to ship the code.
You just need to compile the binary and shove it onto the server. Maybe it's a local runner on a laptop. Maybe it's a simple Tecton task on your cluster. But it has to be totally decoupled from the SaaS vendor.
There was a crucial detail in here about the ingredients, too.
Yes, a backup pipeline is useless if it can't get its dependencies. If your build relies on pulling a package from a registry that is also down, your backup runner will fail just the same.
So you have to be a bit of a doomsday prepper. You need a pantry.
Precisely. You need to cache your build artifacts and your logs in neutral storage. Think Amazon S3, Minio, Google Cloud Storage, something dumb and reliable.
Dumb and reliable.
I like that. Simple storage doesn't crash as often as complex SaaS. If you build a binary, don't just leave it in the GitHub Actions artifact store. Copy it to an S3 bucket that you control. That way you actually have the file if you need it. You're not held hostage.
Which brings us to strategy 3. We've got the mirrored code, the backup runner. Now we need the incident runbooks.
This is the human element. You can have all the backup tech in the world, but if people don't know when or how to use it, it's all useless. You need a specific decision tree for these tool outages.
A decision tree, I love that. So literally, if service X is down, do Y.
Yes, and it's decisions like, do we pause all releases? Or do we switch to the backup runner? Who has the authority to even make that call?
Yeah.
These things need to be decided beforehand, calmly, not in the panic of the moment while the CEO is yelling at you.
And crucially, the source says this runbook must be tested quarterly.
Quarterly, yes.
I have to be honest, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere that actually tested their SaaS outage plan. We test the app backup, sure, but testing what happens if GitHub dies, that seems rare.
It is rare because it's painful. It requires intentional friction. You have to tell your team, okay, stop what you're doing. We're going to pretend everything is broken for an hour. Engineers hate it. Managers hate it.
Yeah.
But the alternative is that the first time you test your plan is when the building's actually on fire. And that's a terrible time to find out your fire extinguisher is empty.
Or that you don't even know where the fire extinguisher is.
Or that the fire extinguisher is locked in a room that needs a badge to open and the badge reader is down because the power is out. That's the cascade.
That is way too real. It's always the badge reader.
Testing reveals those hidden dependencies. You might find out your independent backup script actually queries a GitHub API to get a list of repos to back up. Oops. Better to learn that on a Tuesday afternoon simulation than during a real outage.
You know, hearing all this, it feels like a bit of a paradigm shift. We've spent the last decade obsessed with uptime. The article talks about shifting that philosophy to last radius.
It's a fascinating comparison. The author points out the irony that for a lot of companies, their internal Kubernetes cluster, the thing they were so worried about at the start, is actually more resilient than the SaaS stack they pay for.
Which is completely backwards. We pay these vendors to be the reliable ones.
We do. But uptime is a metric for when things are working. Resilience is the metric for when they are not. The goal isn't paranoia. It's about minimizing the blast radius of these inevitable failures.
So when a tool fails, does it take down your entire company, or is it just a minor annoyance?
That's it. That is the difference between high and low resilience.
I really liked the advice to start small, because looking at this whole list, mirrors, backup runners, quarterly drills, it feels like a mountain of work.
It can be overwhelming, absolutely. But the advice is just to audit your dependencies and identify the 3 to 5 SaaS tools that would kill your pipeline if they went down.
Just the critical ones, the crown jewels.
Right. If your design tool goes down, it's annoying, but it probably doesn't stop production. If your code repository goes down, that's fatal.
Yeah.
Focus on the fatal ones first. Don't try to boil the ocean.
Okay, let's just unpack this for a listener who's maybe thinking, I don't even know where my artifacts are stored right now. This is all about regaining agency, isn't it?
It is. Over the last 10 years, we've outsourced so much of our infrastructure, which has been great for speed. But we outsource the worry along with it. We assume that because we pay a monthly fee, the worry is just gone.
But the worry didn't go away. It just became invisible.
Exactly. And invisible risks are the most dangerous ones because you can't manage what you can't see. This whole article is a call to make those risks visible again, to look them in the eye and say, okay, I see you and I have a plan for you.
And having those cost numbers really helps. Saying $300,000 per hour completely changes the conversation with management.
It absolutely does. If you go to your boss and say, I need resources to set up a Git mirror, they might say, why? We have GitHub. But if you say, an average GitHub outage will cost us $2 million, and I can prevent that for the cost of a cheap server and a script, that's a business case that gets approved.
It's just insurance. You don't buy fire insurance because you think your house will burn down, but because you can't afford to lose it if it does.
And in this case, the house is your ability to deliver software. In 2026, for most companies, that is the entire business. If you can't ship, you don't exist.
So we've covered the blind spot, the huge costs, the uncomfortable audit questions, and the 3 pillars of resilience: mirrors, backup runners, and runbooks.
We have. And I think if there's one thing to really take away, it's that this isn't about blaming the vendors. GitHub, Azure DevOps. They're amazing tools. We are not saying don't use them.
Oh, absolutely not. I use them every single day. Love them.
But they are complex, distributed systems. And complex systems fail. It's just physics. It's inevitable.
It's not if, it's when.
Precisely.
All right, let's recap the key takeaways for anyone who just realized they need to go have a serious talk with their DevOps lead.
Sure. 1, your SaaS stack is probably your biggest single point of failure, mostly because you have zero control over it. 2, the cost of downtime is way higher than you think, potentially millions, because it freezes your entire business.
Right.
3, you need to audit your dependencies. Ask the hard questions. Don't trust the vendor's disaster recovery to be your backup. And 4, build the parachute. Mirror your repos, set up a break glass build runner, and write that run book.
And test it.
And test it. Please, for the love of all that is holy, test it. Don't let the first test be the real emergency.
Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive. It's one of those topics that feels really technical, but it's actually about business survival.
It really is. It's about being a professional. Professionals prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Amateurs just hope.
Ooh, I like that. Amateurs just hope. Don't be an amateur with your infrastructure. Yep. So, as we sign off, here's a final thought for you to chew on. We talked a lot about whether your tools will fail. We know they will. But the author, in Boren, leaves us with a much sharper question.
That's right. The question isn't whether your DevOps sauce will fail. The question is, will you be ready when it does?
Will you be the team scrambling in a broken Slack channel, blaming the vendor? Or will you be the team that opens the runbook, switches to the backup, and just gets back to work?
The choice is yours, but you have to make it before that status light turns red.
Go check your backups, everyone. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Catch you next time.